Enid Blyton's Pet Stories. The Mysterious Thief. Every morning the milkman left a bottle of milk on the doorstep. Billy Bob used to take it in sometimes, and it felt very cold and slippery. He was careful not to drop it. "Belinda, look at the cream on top of the milk," he said each time he brought the bottle in. "We can have it on our porridge." It was fun to watch their mother pour the milk into a jug and then onto their porridge. Billy Bob and Belinda liked to swish it round their plates. Wags, their dog, liked to lick it out the top of the milk bottle, if only he could find it somewhere within reach. One morning, when Billy Bob went out to get the bottle of milk from the doorstep, whatever do you think he saw? Why, the milk bottle was upset, the top was off, and the milk was gone. "Oh, Mummy!" cried Billy Bob, rushing indoors. "Mummy, someone has stolen our milk. Look, the bottle's empty. We've no milk for breakfast." "Oh, what a pity," said his mother, vexed. "Now we shall have to use the little drop I had left over from last night. I hope it isn't sour." "It isn't," said Billy Bob when he tasted it. "Mummy, who do you suppose stole our milk? Wasn't it a horrid thing to do?" "A very horrid thing," said Mother. "I can't imagine who it was." "Perhaps it was that little boy who makes faces at us at the bottom of the road," said Belinda. "Oh, you mustn't say things like that," said Mother. "He may pull silly faces, but I'm quite sure he wouldn't steal somebody's milk." "Well, Mummy, who could it be?" said Belinda, stirring her porridge around. "I don't know," said Mother. "Belinda, don't stir your porridge round any more. You'll make it giddy. Eat it up." So Belinda ate her porridge up, and Billy Bob ate his, and nobody said any more about the stolen milk. But would you believe it, when Billy Bob went to get the bottle of milk the next morning, the milk was gone again. Yes, it really was. The bottle was once more lying on its side, the top was off, and the milk was gone. There were just a few drops on the step, but that was all. "Mummy, the milk's been stolen again!" yelled Billy Bob, rushing indoors with the empty bottle. "Billy Bob, don't run with a glass bottle," said Mother. "You know that it's a very dangerous thing to do." "Oh dear, so the milk's gone again. Well, I haven't a single drop this morning, so you'll have to go and ask Mrs. White next door if she can lend us some." Billy Bob went to ask Mrs. White, and she gave him a jugful because her milk had not been stolen, so she had plenty. Billy Bob carried it carefully home without spilling a drop. He thought and thought about the raw milk, but he simply couldn't imagine who had stolen it. "Mummy, let's put Wags in the hall to sleep tonight," he said. "Then if anyone comes in the early morning after the milkman has left the milk, Wags will hear them and bark. Then they'll be frightened and go away." "That's a good idea, Billy Bob," said Mother. "We'll put Wags's basket there, and he shall sleep just by the door." So that night, Mother put Wags's basket in the hall by the front door. Wags was surprised. He stood looking up at Mother, wagging his tail as if to say, "All right, mistress, I'll sleep here. It seems to be a funny thing to do." Mother knew what Wags said. She could always read the language his tail spoke. "It's all right, Wags," she said, patting him. "I just want you to sleep here for a few nights, and then if any bad person comes creeping up the path to steal our milk in the morning, you will hear them and bark." "Ruff!" said Wags, wagging his tail. He jumped into his basket and lay down with his long ears drooping over the edge. He was on guard. Now, the next morning at about 7:15, Wags heard something. He awoke and sat up in his basket. Someone was scrabbling and scraping on the front doorstep. It was the milk thief. Wags jumped out of his basket and ran to the door. He scraped at it with his feet, barking loudly. Billy Bob woke in a hurry. "Wags is barking at the milk thief," he cried to Belinda, who had woken up too. "Quick, come to the window and see who it is." Billy Bob and Belinda ran to the window and looked out, but do you know they couldn't see anyone at all. Nobody went down the path in a hurry. Nobody ran across the garden. It was most mysterious. "Perhaps it wasn't the robber," said Billy Bob. But you know it was, because when Father went downstairs and undid the door, there was the milk bottle knocked over again, and the milk gone. "Well, really, this is too bad," said Father. "I shall tell our policeman about it. We can't get up early in the morning and watch over our milk every day. It's silly. The policeman will soon find out who is the thief." So Father went to see Mr. Plod, the policeman. He wrote down a great many things in his notebook and looked very serious. "I haven't heard of anyone else having their milk stolen," he said. "It's very strange, sir, that it's just your milk. "I'll keep a watch tomorrow. Do you mind if I hide behind that thick lilac bush in your garden?" Billy Bob and Belinda were most excited to think that Mr. Plod was going to hide in their garden. They went and looked at the lilac bush and wondered if Mr. Plod could really hide there. He was such a big man. Billy Bob got into the bush and pretended to be Mr. Plod. It was great fun playing policeman all that day. Wags didn't sleep in the hall that night. He slept in his usual place in the kitchen. Mr. Plod said it would be better not to have him near the door in case he barked too soon and frightened the thief away. Well, Mr. Plod got behind the lilac bush just after the milkman had left the milk. He couldn't see the front door step from the bush, but he could quite well see if anyone came up the path or crept round the house. He hid there and waited. He waited and he waited. Nobody came. Nobody even went down the street. When it was 7 o'clock, Mr. Plod came out from behind the lilac bush and looked up at Father's bedroom window. Father opened the window and looked out. "Seen anybody?" he said. "Not a single person," said the policeman. "I think the thief might have known I was hiding there this morning." Billy Bob ran down to get the milk for his mother. But dear, dear me, when he opened the front door, there was the milk bottle on its side again and all the milk gone. Billy Bob stared as if he couldn't believe his eyes. Really, it was very, very mysterious. How could the milk have been stolen when Mr. Plod was hiding behind the lilac bush? "Mr. Plod! Daddy, Mummy, the milk has been stolen again!" shouted Billy Bob. And then what a to-do there was. Mr. Plod vowed he hadn't been to sleep in the lilac bush and hadn't seen anyone at all. Wags barked. Billy Bob told Belinda at the top of his voice all about it. "Well, sir, I'm very sorry I couldn't see what happened to the milk," said Mr. Plod, looking quite hot and bothered. "I'm afraid I can't hide again tomorrow morning because I'm doing something in the next village, but I'll come again on Friday and try." "Come and have a hot cup of tea," said Mother. It must have been cold hiding out there so early in the morning. So Mr. Plod had a hot cup of tea, and he said it made him feel better, and then he got on his bicycle and he rode away. "Belinda," said Billy Bob that afternoon, in an excited voice, "I've an idea. What about me hiding and watching for the thief? If only I can wake up early enough, I could actually squeeze into the lilac bush." "Oh yes, Billy Bob, do," squeaked Belinda. "Let me come too." "No, Belinda," said Billy Bob. "Mummy wouldn't like you to do that. You're too little. Besides, it was my idea. I want to do it." Billy Bob didn't say a word to his mother about his idea. Not a word. He was just a bit afraid she might think he was too little. "I do hope I wake up early enough in the morning, Belinda," he said when they were going to bed that night. "Do you think I shall?" "Oh yes, I expect so," said Belinda. "Just say you want to wake up at 7 o'clock, and perhaps you will." So as he went to sleep that night, Billy Bob whispered over and over to himself, "I want to wake up at 7 o'clock. I want to wake up at 7 o'clock. And do you know, when the hall clock was striking 7, Billy Bob awoke. Wasn't that clever of him? He sat up and he listened to the clock striking, and then he heard the milkman coming up the path. He heard the thud of the bottle being put on the doorstep, and the milkman going away again. Good! Billy Bob dressed very quickly indeed, and he only did up just a few buttons. He put on his coat and crept downstairs. Belinda was fast asleep. Nobody else was awake either. Billy Bob had the whole house to himself. He let himself out at the back door. He ran to the lilac bush. He peeped first to see if the milk bottle was on the doorstep, and it was standing up, quite full. Billy Bob hid himself in the bush and waited for the mysterious thief. He waited and he waited, just as Mr. Plod had done, but he heard no footsteps down the road at all. Suddenly he heard something else. It was the sound of the milk bottle being tipped over, and yet Billy Bob had seen no one going up the path to the front door at all. Still the thief was there. Billy Bob heard the sound of the milk gushing out. He jumped out of the bush. He ran bravely to the front door, crying, "I've got you! I've got you!" And then he saw the thief. Whoever do you think it was? Guess. It was their hedgehog, the one that Belinda had found at the bottom of the garden. Would you believe it? He'd come every morning to the doorstep, slyly tipped over the bottle, pushed off the top, and then lapped up all the milk that ran out. Oh, you bad hedgehog, whoever would have thought it was you? Billy Bob stared and stared. There was the prickly hedgehog, lapping up the milk and making a great noise as he did it. He didn't even stop when Billy Bob came up to him. He knew Billy Bob all right. Billy Bob wouldn't hurt him. Why, he'd often had saucers of food from Billy Bob. Billy Bob ran to the house and under the back door. "Mummy, Daddy," he shouted, running up the stairs, "I found the milk thief. It's our hedgehog. He tipped the bottle over, got off the top and then drank the milk." Well, his mother and father couldn't help laughing. So that was a mysterious thief after all, just a raw naughty hedgehog. Whatever would Mr. Plod say when he heard? He would laugh to think he'd hidden in the lilac bush to catch a hedgehog.
"You're a clever fellow, Billy Bob," said father. "You found out the thief when nobody else could. Well done."
"Daddy, how are we going to stop the hedgehog from stealing our milk each morning?" asked Belinda.
"Oh, ask Billy Bob that," said her father. "He's very clever. If he can find the thief, he can stop the stealing. What shall we do about it, Billy Bob?"
"We'll ask the milkman to leave the bottle on the windowsill," said Billy Bob at once. Wasn't that a good idea of his? You see, the hedgehog couldn't climb up there. So now the milk bottle is left on the windowsill, and it's quite safe there each morning. But the hedgehog is not forgotten. He gets a saucer of milk each day. Billy Bob and Belinda give it to him. He's a lucky fellow, isn't he?